Hello, my loves. We're actually just going to go straight into the next one. This next one's called Magic is the Simplest Thing. Why do you think those two Urgles were still in Yazuak? Asked Eragon after they had been on the trail for a while. There doesn't seem to be any reason for them to stay behind. I suspect they deserted the main group to loot the town. What makes it odd is that as far as I know, Urgles have gathered in force only 2 or 3 times in history. It's unsettling that they are doing it now. Do you think the Razak caused the attack? I don't know. The best thing we can do is continue away from Yazuak at the fastest pace we can muster. Besides, this is the direction the Razak went. South. Eragon agreed. We still need provisions, however. Is there another town nearby? Brahm shook his head. No, but Saphir can hunt for us if we must survive on meat alone. This swathe of trees may look small to you, but there are plenty of animals in it. The river is the only source of water for many miles around, so most of the plains animals come here to drink. We won't starve. Eragon remained quiet, satisfied with Brahm's answer. As they rode, loud birds darted around them, and the river flowed peacefully. It was a noisy place, full of life and energy. Eragon asked, How did that Urgle get to you? Things were happening so fast. I didn't see. Bad luck, really, grumbled Brahm. I was more than a match for him, so he kicked Snowfire. The idiot of a horse reared and threw me off balance. That was all the Urgle needed to give me this gash. He scratched his chin. I suppose you're still wondering about this magic. The fact that you've discovered it presents a thorny problem. Few know it, but every rider could use magic, though with differing strengths. They kept the ability secret, even at the height of their power, because it gave them an advantage over their enemies. Had everyone known about it, dealing with common people would have been difficult. Many think the king's magical powers come from the fact that he's a wizard or sorcerer. That's not true. It's because he's a rider. What's the difference? Doesn't the fact that I use magic make me a sorcerer? Not at all. A sorcerer, like a shade, uses spirits to accomplish his will. That is totally different from your power. Nor does that make you an ordinary run-of-the-mill magician whose powers come without the aids of spirits or a dragon. And you're certainly not a witch or wizard who get their powers from various potions and spells. Which brings me back to my original point, the problem you've presented. Young riders like yourself were put through a strict regimen designed to strengthen their bodies and increase their mental control. This regimen continued for many months, occasionally years, until the riders were deemed responsible enough to handle magic. Up until then, not one student was told of this potential power. If one of them discovered magic by accident, he or she was immediately taken away for private tutoring. It was rare for anyone to discover magic on his own. He inclined his head toward Eragon, though they were never put under the same pressure you were. Then how were they finally trained to use magic? Asked Eragon. I don't see how you could teach it to anyone. If you had tried to explain it to me 2 days ago, it wouldn't have made any sense. The students were presented with a series of pointless exercises designed to frustrate them. For example, they were instructed to move piles of stones using only their feet, fill ever-draining tubs full of water, and other impossibilities. After a time, they would get infuriated enough to use magic. Most of the time, it succeeded. What this means, Brahm continued, is that you will be disadvantaged if you ever meet an enemy who has received this training. There are still some alive who are that old. The king, for one, not to mention the elves. Any one of these could tear you apart with ease. What can I do, then? There isn't time for formal instruction, but we can do much while we travel, said Brahm. I know many techniques you can practice that will give you strength and control, but you cannot gain the discipline the riders had overnight. You, he looked at Eragon humorously, will have to advance on the run. It will be hard in the beginning, but the rewards will be great. It may please you to know that no rider your age ever used magic the way you did yesterday with those 2 Urgles. Eragon smiled at the praise. Thank you. Does this language have a name? Brahm laughed. Yes, but no one knows it. It would be a word of incredible power, something by which you could control the entire language and those who use it. People have long searched for it, but no one has ever found it. I still don't understand how this magic works, said Eragon. Exactly how do I use it? Brahm looked astonished. I haven't made that clear? No. Brahm took a deep breath and said, To work with magic, you must have a certain innate power, which is very rare among people nowadays. You also have to be able to summon this power at will. Once it is called upon, you have to use it or let it fade away. Understood? Now, if you wish to employ the power, you must utter the word or phrase of the ancient language that describes your intent. For example, if you hadn't said Brizinger yesterday, nothing would have happened. So I'm limited by my knowledge of this language? Exactly, crowed Brahm. Also, while speaking it, it's impossible to practice deceit. Eragon shook his head. That can't be. People always lie. The sounds of the ancient words can't stop them from doing that. Jesus Christ. I don't know how to pronounce any of this, so be prepared. Brahm cocked an eyebrow and said, Featherblaka eko weo hanata neat haino ono, blaka eum itlam. A bird suddenly flitted from a branch and landed on his hand. It trilled lightly and looked at them with beady eyes. After a moment, he said, Eta, and it fluttered away. How did you do that? Asked Eragon in wonder. I promised not to harm him. He may not have known exactly what I meant, but in the language of power, the meaning of my words was evident. The bird trusted me because he knows what all animals do, that those who speak in that tongue are bound by their word. And the elves speak this language? Yes. So they never lie? Not quite, admitted Brom. They maintain that they don't, and in a way it's true, but they have perfected the art of saying one thing and meaning another. You never know exactly what their intent is, or if you have fathomed it correctly. Many times they only reveal part of the truth and withhold the rest. It takes a refined and subtle mind to deal with their culture. Eragon considered that. What do personal names mean in this language? Do they give power over people? Brom's eyes brightened with approval. Yes, they do. Those who speak the language have two names. The first is for everyday use and has little authority, but the second is their true name and is shared only with a few trusted people. There was a time when no one concealed his true name, but this age isn't his kind. Whoever knows your true name gains enormous power over you. It's like putting your life into another person's hands. Everyone has a hidden name, but few know what it is. How do you find your true name? Asked Eragon. Elves instinctively know theirs. No one else has that gift. The human riders usually went on quests to discover it, or found an elf who would tell them, which was rare, for elves don't distribute that knowledge freely, replied Brom. I'd like to know mine, Eragon said wistfully. Brom's brow darkened. Be careful. It can be a terrible knowledge. To know who you are without any delusions or sympathy is a moment of revelation that no one experiences unscathed. Some have been driven to madness by that stark reality. Most try to forget it. But as much as the name will give others power, so you may gain power over yourself if the truth doesn't break you. And I'm sure that it would not, stated Saphira. I still wish to know, said Eragon, determined. You are not easily dissuaded. That is good, for only the resolute find their identity, but I cannot help you with this. It is a search that you will have to undertake on your own. Brom moved his injured arm and grimaced uncomfortably. Why can't you or I heal that with magic? Asked Eragon. Brom blinked. No reason. I just never considered it because it's beyond my strength. You could probably do it with the right word, but I don't want you to exhaust yourself. I could save you a lot of trouble and pain, protested Eragon. I'll live with it, said Brom flatly. Using magic to heal a wound takes just as much energy as it would on its own. I don't want you tired for the next few days. You shouldn't attempt such a difficult task yet. Still, if it's possible to fix your arm, could I bring someone back from the dead? The question surprised Brom, but he answered quickly. Remember what I said about projects that would kill you? That is one of them. Riders were forbidden to try to resurrect the dead for their own safety. There is an abyss beyond life where magic means nothing. If you reach into it, your strength will flee and your soul will fade into darkness. Wizards, sorcerers, and riders all have failed and died on that threshold. Stick with what's possible. Cuts, bruises, maybe some broken bones, but definitely not dead people. But what about the spirits that sorcerers and shades use? Aren't they human souls? No, and we have precious little idea where they come from. Eragon frowned. This is a lot more complicated than I thought. Exactly, said Brom. And if you don't understand what you're doing, you'll try something too big and die. He twisted in his saddle and swooped down, grabbing a handful of pebbles from the ground. With effort, he righted himself, then discarded all but one of the rocks. See this pebble? Yes. Take it. Eragon did and stared at the unremarkable lump. It was dull black, smooth, and as large as the end of his thumb. There were countless stones like it on the trail. This is your training. Eragon looked back at him, confused. I don't understand. Of course you don't, said Brom impatiently. That's why I'm teaching you and not the other way around. Now stop talking or we'll never get anywhere. What I want you to do is lift the rock off your palm and hold it in the air for as long as you can. The words you're going to use are Stener Ryza. Say them. Stener Ryza. Good. Go ahead and try. Eragon focused sourly on the pebble, searching his mind for any hint of the energy that had burned in him the day before. The stone remained motionless as he stared at it, sweating and frustrated. How am I supposed to do this? Finally, he crossed his arms and snapped. This is impossible. No, said Brom gruffly. I'll say when it's impossible or not. Fight for it. Don't give in this easily. Try again. Frowning, Eragon closed his eyes, setting aside all distracting thoughts. He took a deep breath and reached into the farthest corners of his consciousness, trying to find where his power resided. Searching, he found only thoughts and memories until he felt something different. A small bump that was part of him and yet not of him. Excited, he dug into it, seeking what it hid. He felt resistance, a barrier in his mind, but he knew that the power lay on the other side. He tried to breach it, but it held firm before his efforts. Growing angry, he drove into the barrier, ramming against it with all of his might until it shattered like a thin pane of glass, flooding his mind with a river of light. "Stenor, Ryza," he gasped. The pebble wobbled into the air over his faintly glowing palm. He struggled to keep it floating, but the power slipped away and faded back behind the barrier. The pebble dropped into his hand with a soft plop, and his palm returned to normal. He felt a little tired, but grinned from his success. "Not bad for your first time," said Brom. "Why does my hand... It's like a little lantern." "No one's sure," Brom admitted. "The writers always prefer to channel their power through whichever hand bore the Gedway Ignacia. You can use your other palm, but it isn't as easy." He looked at Eragon for a minute. "I'll buy you some gloves at the next town if it isn't gutted. You hide the mark pretty well on your own, but we don't want anyone to see it by accident. Besides, there may be times when you don't want the glow to alert an enemy." "Do you have a mark of your own?" "No, only riders have them," said Brom. "Also, you should know that magic is affected by distance, just like an arrow or a spear. If you try to lift or move something a mile away, it'll take more energy than if you were closer. So if you see enemies racing after you from a league away, let them approach before using magic. Now, back to work. Try to lift the pebble again." "Again?" asked Eragon weakly, thinking of the effort it had taken to do it just once. "Yes, and this time be quicker about it." They continued with the exercises throughout most of the day. When Eragon finally stopped, he was tired and ill-tempered. In those hours, he had come to hate the pebble and everything about it. He started to throw it away, but Brom said, "Don't. Keep it." Eragon glared at him, then reluctantly tucked the stone into a pocket. "We're not done yet," warned Brom, "so don't get comfortable." He pointed at a small plant. "This is called Deloise." From there on, he instructed Eragon in the ancient language, giving him words to memorize, from Vonder, a thin, straight stick, to the morning star, Ideal. That evening, they sparred around the fire. Though Brom fought with his left hand, his skill was undiminished. The days followed the same pattern. First, Eragon struggled to learn the ancient words and to manipulate the pebble. Then in the evening, he trained against Brom with the fake swords. Eragon was in constant discomfort, but he gradually began to change, almost without noticing. Soon, the pebble no longer wobbled when he lifted it. He mastered the first exercises Brom gave him and undertook harder ones, and his knowledge of the ancient language grew. In their sparring, Eragon gained confidence and speed, striking like a snake. His blows became heavier, and his arm no longer trembled when he warded off attacks. The clashes lasted longer as he learned how to fend off Brom. Now, when they went to sleep, Eragon was not the only one with bruises. Saphira continued to grow as well, but more slowly than before. Her extended flights, along with periodic hunts, kept her fit and healthy. She was taller than the horses now, and much longer. Because of her size and the way her scales sparkled, she was altogether too visible. Brom and Eragon worried about it, but they could not convince her to allow dirt to obscure her scintillating hide. They continued south, tracking the Razak. It frustrated Eragon that no matter how fast they went, the Razak always stayed a few days ahead of them. At times, he was ready to give up, but then they would find some mark or print that would renew his hope. There were no signs of habitation along the Ninor or in the plains, leaving the three companions undisturbed as the days slipped by. Finally, they neared Daret, the first village since Yazawak. That night, before they reached the village, Eragon's dreams were especially vivid. He saw Garrow and Rorin at home, sitting in the destroyed kitchen. They asked him for help rebuilding the farm, but he only shook his head with a pang of longing in his heart. "I'm tracking your killers," he whispered to his uncle. Garrow looked at him askance and demanded, "Do I look dead to you?" "I can't help you," said Eragon softly, feeling tears in his eyes. There was a sudden roar, and Garrow transformed into the Razak. "Then die," they hissed, and leapt at Eragon. He woke up feeling ill and watching the stars slowly turn in the sky. "All will be well, little one," said Saphira gently. And that's the end of that chapter. Until next time, love you so much.